A run of robberies has left the local town guard scratching their heads. The thieves have left no evidence of their crimes and no trace of their break-ins. Anyone who can apprehend the thieves will be paid handsomely for their efforts. But unfortunately for your players, this case isn't quite as cut and dry as it might first appear. Welcome to Quick Quest, the series where I give you ready-to-run adventures that you can use in your own games. This side quest is designed for a party of 4 level 5 adventurers, but it can easily be scaled up or down for parties of various sizes and levels. As with any of my Quick Quest series, this could be used as is or as inspiration for your own adventures. I use this quest in one of my own campaigns, but I've made a couple of tweaks now that I've actually seen how it played out at the table. Without further ado, let's get started. This quest can take place in any moderately sized city so long as it has a pretty robust market. I'd recommend choosing or design a city that economically isn't doing so great. While a couple big wigs at the top profit, most folks are left struggling to make ends meet, if they can afford to have a roof over their heads at all. The town guard is usually stretched thin, just trying to keep order in a city that's constantly on edge. And oftentimes, robberies like these will either fall through the cracks or be given to guards that are ill-equipped to solve the crime. This is a great quest to have on a job board or offered as a bounty, the kind of adventure that you can slot into pretty much any city if you need a little extra time to prep for the overall story, or if your players are just looking to make a little more coin. When I ran it, I actually had it given to them by a smuggling group that they've been working with. I flavored it as the thieves had stolen some of the goods that the fences were trying to sell and had unknowingly interfered with the guild's business. Consider enticing your players not just with gold, but with getting to keep something that the thieves have stolen if they can apprehend them. Maybe a +1 dagger or a rare gem, for example. Before they embark, the party should be given a bit of background information. In the past week, 3 stores have been hit by thieves, each losing some expensive merchandise to the perpetrators. In truth, it really doesn't matter what sorts of shops have been robbed, so if you have an NPC that you've been really dying to use, or a shop that you already wanted your players to visit, this is a good way to integrate them into the story in a way that feels natural. While none of the owners know each other, there are a few things in common with the thefts. Each owner believes they were robbed in blind daylight, as they'd seen the items that were stolen that morning and learned they'd been taken at closing. There was no sign of breaking and entering, but each stolen item had been on display. They weren't locked behind a case or in a chest, for example. While they each had customers on the day of the theft, they're confident they didn't miss any people who came in and interacted with everyone who was shopping. Other than that, they don't have much to go on, hence where your players step in. Your party will be tasked with apprehending the thieves and recovering the stolen goods as proof. If they take on the task of finding these burglars, then you've got a quest on your hands. Once they've accepted the quest, they can begin their investigation. The players will need to find clues as to who's robbing these stores and how. When designing this quest, I tried to leave it as open-ended as possible, so I could better adapt to whatever strategies the players employ. Your party might want to watch the streets for anything shady, interrogate all of the different shopkeepers, or look for strange footprints in each shop. Whatever they choose to do, you can let them make the appropriate roll for it. Maybe an insight check to see if a shopkeep is hiding anything, or a perception check to watch for any strange individuals hanging about. And on a success, give them one of a number of different clues that will help them solve the overall mystery. I think a good DC for these checks is about 14. Some potential clues are footprints by the scene of the crime, but not human footprints, instead small paw prints. They might find that on the stand where one of the stolen items was kept, there are tiny claw marks, and with a successful nature check, would reveal them to be feline. If they're keeping a watchful eye on the streets, they may pick up on an odd number of stray cats hanging around. And if they're interrogating the shopkeepers, they'll have also picked up on the fact that there are a lot of strays around the market lately. Once they've gathered up some clues, they should end up at the same conclusion. These burglars don't appear to be people at all, but cats. Or at least they're working with cats. Once the players make that connection, they'll probably start searching the market for any stray cat that they can find. Investigation, perception, and survival are all probably applicable checks to make. Just in case they need a little extra push though, passive perception can be your friend here. You can always let the player who has the highest score notice a stray cat nearby acting kind of weird. They watch as it stares intently at a storefront window, not flinching or moving as people pass by. At this point, the quest can branch off in a few different directions based on how your players want to handle the situation. There is no way to possibly prepare for every single outcome, so instead, here's how you can handle a few of their most likely choices. Even if they go with a completely different option, these paths will provide you with a framework for how to build out the rest of the quest and how to decide whatever happens next. The main thing you need to know is that this stray is no cat at all, but a druid in disguise, and they're not alone. If confronted, they'll do whatever they can to get back to their hideout. If your players decide to approach the cat, it'll run away if it notices them. Cats normally have a passive perception of 13, but this cat's is actually 14, using the druid stat block that you can find in the monster manual. If your players don't sneak up on it, it'll see them coming and take off for a nearby alleyway. If the players do successfully stealth up to them, then you can give them a chance to grab the cat while it's none the wiser. Probably an athletics check versus an acrobatics check to grapple it. Even if they don't sneak up on the druid successfully, that doesn't mean they won't still have a chance to catch it. Maybe they can outrun it, or one of the players has spells like Entangle that they can use to trap it. Maybe they'll try to Misty Step in its pass and snatch it before it can escape. If they go this route, give the player the chance to use their abilities, make them checks, and catch the cat if they can. The last thing you want to do is make them feel like it was inevitable that the cat would escape. If they do catch the cat, it won't want to be held hostage for too long. Whether they decide to bring it somewhere for questioning or straight back to the guards, the moment they find themselves alone with the party, the cat will transform. They'll reveal themselves to be a druid named Hank, a younger human man with greasy black hair, tattered clothes, and a couple of missing teeth. Hank's motivations are pretty simple. He steals for money and cares above all else about his own self-preservation. Hank will under no circumstances want to go to the guards. If the party tries to take him there voluntarily, he'll do whatever he can to escape, including casting spells like Longstrider and Thunderwave. But if the party tries to negotiate with him, he'll gladly sell out his friends for his own freedom. Or, if the option prevents itself, try and trick the party into bringing him back to the druid's hideout. The druid's hideout is just outside the market, and Hank will tell the party that there are 8 other powerful druids waiting for him back there. In truth, there's only 4, and a simple DC 12 insight check, or if you prefer, against his +0 deception, will root out the lie. He'll offer to tell them exactly where the hideout is if they agree to let him go. Better yet, he'll even take them there. If the party decide not to trust Hank and instead arrest him, the guards might be willing to take them on their word. But remember, the stolen goods are what your players need as proof. Otherwise, how do the guards know that they didn't just grab some poor sucker off the streets and bring him in? With or without Hank, they'll need to get to that hideout. If Hank is in custody, they can go back to the market and search for more clues that'll help point them in the right direction. If they decide to take Hank up on his offer, he'll lead them right to it. And if they failed to catch Hank earlier at all, or instead simply followed him sneakily rather than trying to grab him, they'll also end up here. All roads lead to the hideout. The hideout is an old abandoned building at the end of an alleyway. The windows and door are boarded up, and the alley itself is littered with garbage and old boxes. Those with high passive perception, however, will note that a few of the boxes lead up to one of those windows, where a small hole in the wood would allow anybody small enough access inside, like a cat. If the party arrives here with Hank, he'll try to make his leave. But if it becomes apparent that the party isn't going to honor their deal, instead he'll try to get inside however he can, maybe using a spell before transforming into a cat to get up to the hole. How your players handle him at this point is up to them. But if they do take him out, then remember if things come to blow later on, to adjust the number of druids based on whether or not Hank is still with them. They might also try to take Hank inside with them to speak with his friends. Unless the party has been super antagonistic to him, Hank will agree, because if he can, he wants to get inside to his friends where he can find strength in numbers. Inside the building, the druids have made their home here, but this is not an impressive place. The entire room smells like wet fur and stale ale. It's messy, with tattered rags and broken boxes littering the floor. There are a couple of old, matted up bedrolls that are laid out, but they don't look particularly comfortable to sleep in. Depending on how gritty your game is, you might even have some illicit substances lying around the place. Living here are 4 more druids, and if Hank escaped after your players caught him, then all of these druids will be immediately hostile, knowing what's coming for them. Similarly, if the players go in guns blazing, maybe they blast the window open, that will cause the druids to attack. But if the players go in calmly, or have Hank with them and he's being cooperative, this doesn't have to come to blows. These druids clearly aren't living in luxury. Most of their profits are going to food, booze, and whatever other small pleasures they can spend it on. The items they've stolen certainly aren't going to be worth their lives. If the players do engage with them in discussion, the druids could likely be persuaded with coin or threatened into giving up their thieving ways. They should have at least one or two of the stolen items in their possession, potentially as a reward for the players, or at the very least, proof they can bring to the town guards that these robberies have been solved. If the players are set on turning them in for the reward, however, they're going to have to fight, because these druids do not want to go to jail. For level 5 adventurers, 4 or 5 druids should be a decent challenge, but not overly difficult. For a bigger fight, you can choose a creature other than cats that some of them can wild shape into, maybe a wolf, for example. That'll give them some extra hit points and help them attack the party in various ways besides just using their spells. If you're running this for more than 4 players or at a higher level, you can always add another druid, and vice versa if your players are under-leveled or fewer in number. One last thing to consider is that while these druids don't want to be arrested, it's definitely better than dying. If 1 or 2 are killed in combat, the rest will most likely surrender or flee. It's up to you to decide exactly how battle-hardened you want to make these druid druggies, and of course, it'll be a stiffer test of combat if they all fight to the death. But keep in mind, not every battle has to come to that. Whether the situation is resolved peacefully or by force, the legend of the camp burglars will come to an end. The players can receive their reward if they turn in the druids, and if they let the robbers go free, the items they stole could provide reward enough. If the party did convince them to stop stealing, you might want to roll to see how well they actually keep their promise. Could be a good callback in the future if your players ever return to town. But if the druids are dead or in jail, probably best to leave them be. You don't want the players to feel like they wasted their time if they come back to town and the druids are still somehow running amok even though they were arrested. With that, your players can return to their adventures a little richer and perhaps a bit warier of any pets they come across. Whether or not you use this quest in your own game, I hope you can find some inspiration for the adventures that you do bring to your table. Leaving where you hide your quest clues open-ended is a tip that can apply to all kinds of adventures. And remembering that no matter where your players guide you, you can always lead them back to the content you have prepared with a little bit of behind-the-scenes maneuvering and keeping your NPCs true to their motivations. Thank you so much for watching, and if you do run this quest, let me know how it went in the comments. It is by no means perfect, and one of the best parts of D&D is getting to collaborate and build things together. If you enjoyed the video, it really helps the channel if you leave a like, and of course you can subscribe to the Bard's College for more quick quests and other tabletop content. But for now, good luck, and remember, crit your players.